Morning. In this video, I want to have a look at a sort of end of season review of the Player XG tool and how accurate is it? And can it be used to bet profitably on the exchange? Because we're in that little summer break, especially between the Champions League final and the Euros next week. So it's a good time to have a look at these. Also, I got an email through and the email says, I'm in a few groups who use Betfair exchange prices as gospel. And I have a question about the Player XG model. For example, Ryan Christie was 2.23 on bookie bashing for anytime goal scorer, and Betfair was last matched at 3.05. I have a lot of peers who say that bookie bashing prices aren't accurate and the Betfair prices are the ones to go off. My question is, do you have any results based on the XG bets? It's a very legitimate question. Let's have a look at it in this video. Especially as we've come to the end of the season, we can check the data. Now, the data is available to everyone. You can download the season's worth of data from the data archive tool. I'll maybe do a video after this one to show how that works. You've got to select competition to get a year at a time, otherwise it restricts you to a month at a time. But of course, we should be looking at this because we know the logic is sound. But you need three things in betting. You need logic, you need opportunity, but then you need to see the results. You know, if you've just got logic and opportunity, but the results are crap or don't work, then what's the point? And maybe the results are good, but if there's no logic, you might have got lucky. So you need all three of those. And we do have them in Player XG, but we need to look at the results. But let's discuss them here, because here's the thing. We can look at how many goals the exchange estimated, predicted. Now, we can then look at how many goals we predicted with our model. Now, to be profitable, we need to be more accurate than the exchange. And if we are more accurate than the exchange, then the results should show a positive ROI. And if the exchange is more accurate than our numbers, we're going to have lost money. Okay? Now, we hope that the sample size is big enough to discuss these lines. I mean, one season's worth of data. What is that in the Premier League? There's 20 teams. They play each other twice. So they play 38 games times 20, that's 760 games. It's quite a lot. It's quite a big sample size, but let's have a look at the data. Okay, there's no point in arguing or suggesting that this is more accurate or that is more accurate. Let's look at, the data doesn't lie. Now, one point about Ryan Christie, who was 2.23 for anytime goal scorer. I need more information because it depends if that's before team news or after team news. Before team news, the exchange prices factor in a, if you like, probability that the player is going to play a certain number of minutes. So perhaps Ryan Christie was estimated to play 10 minutes. He was going to come on in the 80th minute as a substitute. Well, the exchange price is going to factor that in. It's going to be considerably higher than if he was assumed to be starting the match, right? So in order to answer the question, I need to know that bit of information, and I don't. So I can't explain why it was so different. But if it was after team news, well, the question comes down to, over a season, who's more accurate, the exchange or the bookie bashing prices? And very quickly, why would the bookie bashing prices be more accurate than the exchange? There's a simple answer for this. For every game in the EPL over the season, we take all 20 starting players, we look at the team news, we bring it in, and we take those 20 starting players, and we make sure that the anytime goal scorer prices add up to the expected goals in the game. The exchange doesn't do this because the people seeding the market there are not coordinated. Also, there's often not a lot of liquidity for the defenders, the lesser known, the less popular players. But there's a lot of recreational money in anytime goal scorer. And I want to now look at the data to see if it was profitable in the 23-24 season that's just finished in the English Premier League. So what data are we going to use? Well, I've downloaded all of the data and I've put it in a spreadsheet underneath it here, but you could download the same data from the archive tool on bookie bashing. We do have to eliminate some players because if you download it all, you are going to get 18,000 players, but a lot of them didn't have a legitimate price on the exchange. A lot of defenders may have a back and no lay with nothing traded. So what's the fair price on the exchange there? There isn't one, you can't estimate it. So you either need to have some sort of trading activity, or you need to have a back and a lay with a fairly efficient gap between the two of them. One of the two, okay? And depending on the composition of the market will use some logic to pick up the back, the lay, the midpoint, or the last traded price, and that's the price from the exchange. So if we just look at players that have a price on the exchange, and then we just look at players that started, we don't want to look at substitutes, then we have a sample size of 1,828 players. That's quite a decent sample size over the 700 and however many games, 760 games. Now, we've got all of the AGS prices from the exchange here. The average price was 12.8, okay? And we can work out how many expected goals there are from these prices using an inverse or a reverse Poisson distribution with the AGS price. If you like, this is like doing a Poisson distribution in reverse, where we start with the answer, which is the AGS price, and we're trying to work out what the mean was from that answer with a target of over 0 goals. So if you don't care about the maths, that's essentially how we're doing this analysis, and that's how we get expected goals from anytime goal scorer price. So we've got an expected goals for every player on the pitch. How many goals did the exchange predict the Premiership players were going to score last season? 301.06 goals. How many goals were scored by these players? Of course, there were more goals because substitutes scored goals and players that didn't have a traded price scored goals. But just from players that had prices on the exchange predicted 301.06. There were 307 goals. That's actually way more accurate than I thought it was going to be. 98.0% accuracy there. Really narrow window for us to beat with a normalized price, isn't it? It's pretty decent. The wisdom of the crowds did a good job. 98% accuracy. They thought there were going to be 301 goals. There were 307 goals. What about bookie bashing after we've normalized the prices and forced all of the starting 20 players to equal the match XG minus something for the substitutes? What about that? We thought there were going to be 306.02 goals. So that is a accuracy of 99.7%. So the exchange was 98.0% accurate. Bookie bashing was 99.7% accurate. So we were more accurate than the exchange, and that therefore leads to the theory that we should have been profitable on the exchange because we were closer to the actual number. And you have two options with these value bets. If our numbers are higher than the exchange, we're looking at backing. If our numbers are lower than the exchange, we're looking at laying, and just swap that around. Okay, so if our numbers are lower than the exchange, we're going to back because the exchange is too high. And if our numbers are higher than the exchange, we're going to lay. So how many backs and how many lays were there? It's fairly 50-50 to tell you the truth. I thought there would have been way more lays than backs. But actually, when we looked at the data, we found that there were 832 occasions where we would have backed because the exchange price was higher, and 996 occasions when we would have laid because the exchange price was lower. So I'm looking at a unit win strategy on this, and using a unit win strategy, and I have to now factor in commission. So I've taken 2% commission off this. If we were staking to win £200 per bet, we would have staked £34,000 for £2,400 profit over the season. So that's 1,800 bets with £2,400 profit. That's a return on investment of 6.995% on the exchange after 2% commission. Okay? What about if we had 5% commission? Oh, that is 5% commission. No, yeah, it is 2% commission. But if we had 5% commission, it would be down at 4.63%. Okay? And if you've got 0% commission, maybe it's markets or somewhere else, then you'd be up at 8% return on investment. And that's the backs. What about the lays? So this is when the exchange price is lower than the bookie bashing normalized price. That also would have been in profit with a 2% commission rate at the exchange. You would have been looking at 1.4% return on investment. If you had a 5% commission on the exchange, it would have been just a little bit less. It would have been 1.2%. So we're profitable both in backs and in lays there, which isn't too surprising. That's over a sample size of 1,828 players and 780 games. It's getting there. I'd maybe want another, I don't know, quarter of a season on top before I started saying I've got a reasonable sample size. But what it shows is that it's profitable. And it's profitable because the logic stands up. Because the people on the exchange, they're not coordinating these prices. I mean, if you think about it, what if all 20 players were 1.01 on the exchange? They're assuming that there's going to be thousands of goals in that game, aren't they? All 20 players are 1 to 100 to get a goal. So that's going to be a lay. All of those players you're going to want to lay at 1.01. And what if all the players were 100 to 1 at the exchange? That's then therefore assuming there's going to be almost 0 goals in this game. They're all are back, aren't they? And of course it's not that extreme, but the exchange doesn't have that coordination after team news where they're making sure that the prices of those players are accurate. And, you know, we wait until we have an API that delivers team news into Bookie Bashing before we normalize these AGS prices. But team news tends to come in 5, 10, sometimes 20 minutes before the API feed. And if it does, you can bring up your team news on this window and go into the tool in this window, and you can quickly add in the team news, and you'll be seeing the value before anybody else because they haven't added the team news in. You can go onto the exchange and you can clean this up. But yeah, if you were betting to win £200 and you were backing, then you would have made 2,400 quid. Laying's always an interesting animal to compare against that because there were quite a few high-priced losers over the season. If laying, some 28s, 29s, 30s came in, Mainu for Manchester United was one of those. But return on investment is the key figure here. Your return on investment for backing, which is more fun than laying generally when it's odds against, was higher anyway, up at 6.99%. So in order to answer the question, the specific question, do you have any results based on XG bets? Hopefully this video gives a summary of at least the last season, 23-24, that's happened in the Premiership. And I'll have a spreadsheet below where you can download the data that I've used in this video. But if you want to look at any other competition from French League One to the Euros coming up, the archive tool has got them all. Bear in mind, the overwhelming majority of liquidity on the exchange for anytime goal scorer bets is the English Premiership. I did look at it before. I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but I feel like something like 85% plus of all liquidity in anytime goal scorer is English Premiership, and 15% is every other competition combined. So the English Premiership is most of the tool. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. If you've got any queries on the data or the analysis, fire them in to support@bookiebashing.net or pop into support in my account and send us a ticket. Cheers.